Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Iowa, also known as the Hawkeye State. Let's start with some facts about the state, as we always do. Statehood for Iowa was granted December 28th, 1846, making it the 29th state to join the United States. The capital of Iowa is Des Moines. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. I know that that's how we pronounce it. I've heard people say that before. People from Iowa actually pronounce it Des Moines. Whether or not that's actually how it should be pronounced, because as I understand it, it's French in origin. I know some pronunciation with French, but I'm by no means an expert. Population is 3.2 million, making it the 30th most populous state. The area is 55,857 square miles, which is approximately 144,669 kilometers squared. The largest cities in Iowa are Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, and Sioux City. Now, there is some dispute over how Iowa came to be called Iowa, and also how it gained the nickname of the Hawkeye State. It could be that Iowa was named for the Iowa tribe. Now, this is really a good bet, in my opinion, because Iowa and Iowa are different by one letter. Iowa is spelled exactly like you see here, Iowa, with the addition of a Y on the end. So most likely it is true that it was named after the Iowa people. Now, as far as the Hawkeye State goes, there's basically two major theories. One is that it was named the Hawkeye State after Chief Black Hawk, in honor of that particular chief. But it could also come from The Last of the Mohicans, from a character in the book called Hawkeye. Last of the Mohicans was a book by James Fenimore Cooper. History of Iowa. Originally, the French claimed the territory, and it was explored by Jacques Marguet and Louis Jollet. The French then turned the territory over to the Spanish, because they lost the French and Indian War. The Spanish didn't really actively control the area, and the British and the French both received a lot of trading concessions from the Spanish to operate in that area. Even though the Spanish claimed it, they weren't really doing anything with it, so they were letting these trappers and traders and whatever else into the area to exploit the resources and whatnot. Napoleon Bonaparte then reclaimed the territory from the Spanish in 1800, and the territory was then bought subsequently from the French by the United States as part of the Louisiana Purchase. Much of Iowa was mapped by Zebulon Pike in 1805. But the first, Zebulon Pike was a brigadier general for the United States Army and was under the orders of President Jefferson to explore the Louisiana Purchase so that they could figure out what they were going to do with it. The U.S. really didn't exert control over the area until Fort Madison was built in 1808. Further, the War of 1812 against the British, it removed settlers from the area. Basically, there was the conflict, the settlers got out of the way, and because of that, the American defeats in the area meant that the British controlled the area. But at the end of the war, the United States reclaimed the territory. and the U.S. encouraged settlement of the area and the removal of the native tribes. And so from 1814 to about 1832 was the Indian removal. Obviously, this did cause friction, and this is where we come into Black Hawk. Chief Black Hawk waged war against the settlers at the time, and it became known as the Black Hawk War. He was a leader of the Sauk tribe that was displaced at this point in time. During the Civil War, so then we have statehood in 1860. Then the Civil War happened. During the Civil War, Iowa supported the Union. There were no battles fought in Iowa, but Iowa did contribute proportionately more than any other state, which is interesting. They were just a newly formed state at that point in time. So from a population of 675,000 people, they contributed 75,000 volunteers. After the Civil War, Iowa concentrated on attracting settlers and expanding its agriculture. The Great Depression did hit Iowa pretty hard. Iowa was a farming state, and so there was a lot of problems with agriculture at that point in time, and they ended up trying to switch their economy so that they were focusing more on biotechnology, finance, and insurance services, and government services. So whether or not that was successful, I would say probably on the whole they did make a go of it. So Iowa, 60% of Iowa is used for agriculture. 30% is grasslands and wetlands. 7% is forests, and the rest is urban and water. Iowa has very little in the way of natural area, ranking 49th out of the United States for public lands. So there's when you go there, don't expect to see a lot of like unspoiled nature. In fact, climate is humid continental. In the summer, the average temperature is in the 80s with high humidity. The temperature does get up into the hundreds, but not often. And then in the winter, the temperature goes from around 14 to the low 20s. So summer about 30 in the 30 Celsius. In the winter, it can go down to the negative 10 Celsius. Spring is the severe weather season in Iowa, with about 50 days in the spring of thunderstorms. Iowa averages about 47 tornadoes per year. So, industry in Iowa, manufacturing, agriculture, health insurance, and other are the main forms of industry in Iowa. Food processing is the largest, with machinery, electric equipment, chemical products, publishing, and primary metals. Direct and indirect processing facilities in Iowa. The companies that have those are ConAgra Foods, Wells Blue Bunny, Barilla, Heinz, Tone's Spices, General Mills, Quaker Oats. Tyson Foods has 11 locations, second only to its headquarters, which is in Arkansas. So they have more locations in Arkansas, but that's where they're located. Major non-food manufacturing include 3M, Arconic, Amana Corporation, Emerson Electric, the HON Company, John Deere, Lennox Manufacturing, Pella, and the list goes on. Their major agricultural crops are hogs, corn, soybean, oats, cattle, eggs, dairy products. So they're the largest producer of ethanol and corn. And depending on the year, they could actually be the largest grower of soybeans in the country. There are as of 2008, the 92,600 farms in Iowa produced 19% of the nation's corn, 17% of the soybeans, 30% of the hogs, and 14% of the eggs that we used. We have Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield as a health insurance provider. They provide 71% of the state's health insurance. Renewable energy has become a major economic factor, a major economic industry in Iowa, with wind turbine electrical generation increasing exponentially since 1990. In 2019, wind power in Iowa accounted for 42% of the electrical energy produced, which is pretty good. Iowa ranked first of the U.S. states in percentage of total power generated by wind, and second in wind generating capacity behind Texas, which is a huge state. So they have a lot more places to put wind turbines. So, yeah. Producers of turbines and components, we have Achona Energy, maybe, West Branch. TPI Composites of Newton and Siemens Energy of Fort Madison. They also, Principal Financial, Rockwell Collins, American Equity Investment. They are the headquarters of Hy-Vee, Pella Corporation. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on there in Iowa, but we'll move on. Okay, tourism. What should you look for when going to Iowa? If you've heard of the bridges of Madison County, this is where you will find them. They are in Iowa. The book, movie, Broadway musical, that's there. Iowa has a long history of state fairs. The Iowa State Fair is, each state has their own state fair, but Iowa is kind of famous for state fairs. It's interesting. They have a lot of roadside attractions. The largest concrete bull, the largest corn stalk, the biggest Swedish coffee pot, the most massive strawberry, the largest wooden nickel, and a gigantic popcorn ball, as well as the largest concrete gnome. Yes. And then Then we have the Grotto of the Redemption, which was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2001. It's a religious grotto. There are 9 separate grottos, each portraying a scene in the life of Christ. The scenes are made from semi-precious gems. It was conceived by Paul Matthias Doberstein. He was a Catholic priest, and apparently he almost died from pneumonia. And so when he was in the process of dying, or recovering, however you look at it, he promised that he would build this grotto if the Virgin Mary would intercede on his behalf. He got better, and he started his grotto. The grotto commenced construction in 1912. You can go camping, hiking, fishing, boating. There are pedal-assisted bike tours, which is kind of cool. Let me back up just a bit. So we have the Mississippi River cruises. So Mississippi River flows past Ohio, but we also have this Rail Explorers. Now, they have these special pedal-assisted bikes, so it probably has some sort of engine, but it rests on the railroad tracks, and you can take the bike, and I assume that it's not on, it's either on a retired railroad track, it's no longer used, but you can take these these tours along the Des Moines River. Riverside, Iowa is the future birthplace of Starfleet Captain James T. Kirk, and you can celebrate his birthday. There's a memorial there in Riverside. John Wayne, famous American movie star, was also born in Iowa. Iowa is the largest producer of corn in the United States. Sliced bread was invented in Iowa. And now I don't mean to say that you can't take a loaf of bread and cut it. No. The guy who invented basically the commercial sliced loaf, he invented the machine that sliced up the bread. His name was Otto Frederick Rohwedder. He invented the bread slicing machine in Iowa. It was first sold in Missouri, but the machine was invented and manufactured in Iowa. The first digital computer was invented by John Vincent Atanasoff and his student Clifford Berry at Iowa State University. They also have the Register's annual Great Race Across Iowa. It's a 7-day bike ride. From what I can tell, they call it a moving festival more than a bike race. So, let's see. So, it's a celebration of Iowa's small towns and community cultures. It's the oldest, largest, and longest multi-day bicycle touring event in the world. It is 468 miles or 753 kilometers. And then Iowa apparently has the most golf courses of any state in the United States. So there we have a lot of things to do in Iowa and a lot of trivia. So prehistoric earth mounds. There's Effigy Mounds National Monument. This is a view of one of the monuments. They're shaped like panthers, bison, deer, and other animals. There's over 200 of these. The painting, American Gothic, was painted in, it was painted in Eldon, Iowa. And there's a spot where the house still is, and you can go get your picture taken there. Red Delicious apples came from Iowa. The trampoline was invented in Iowa. In 1869, native Iowan Arabella Mansfield became the first female lawyer in the U.S. In Iowa, there are 4 times as many hogs as there are people. They outnumber people 4-1. Yeah. Britt, the town of Britt, Ohio, is the home of the National Hobo Convention. There is the Hobo Museum there as well, which is the only museum to dedicate itself to the hobo way of life, which includes, for the Hobo Convention, there's parades, entertainment, arts, crafts, historical information about the hobo way of life. And then in 1982, Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a live bat on stage in Des Moines, Iowa. So there you go. That's it for Iowa. If you have any questions about Iowa that you'd like me to answer, I can go ahead and look them up for you if I don't already know them. Please give a like and subscribe. Click the notification bell down below to get notified when I put up new videos about Americana. And see you next time.